So from research methods, one of the research method is action research. So let's have a look. In this session we're going to talk about a research method जो कि action research है. So we all know that action research is from the pragmatic domain, जो कि हमारे पास research paradigm है, वो pragmatic paradigm के अंदर आता है. और it means, as the name shows, action research, it involves the solution to a problem जो कि doable है. The research इस paradigm में, pragmatic paradigm में, लोग research सिर्फ उसी को research मानते हैं that actually go and solve the problem जो कि उस domain में exist करती है. So let's have a look what action research actually is. It's just simply a form of self-reflective inquiry जिसके अंदर देखें the researcher खुद inquire करता है and then he reflects on it as well, and so that he is able to improve upon the understanding of his of rationality behind certain practices that is going on in scenarios या in situations जो कि उस phenomena के around घूमती हैं. They try, the action researcher try to understand कि अगर कोई practices हो रही हैं तो what are they correct, वो ठीक भी हो रही है, what is the rationality behind it, कि उन practices का मकसद क्या है, वो are they properly being executed or not, और अगर हो भी रही हैं तो क्या reason है कि certain practices वो जो है ना इस particular domain में जो इसके people surrounding this phenomenon है वो उसको follow करते हैं. Or it is about understanding of these practices in terms of can they become better. पहले से ही practices हैं लेकिन क्या उनको उनसे बेहतर किया जा सकता है, or understanding how those practices can be taken and they can be used in other scenarios. So overall it's about understanding the way of doing things and solving problems in such a way कि आप उसको बेहतर बना सको अपने the situation around that phenomena. So this is what the action research is about, and it involves practical problems जो कि solve हो सकती हैं and action researchers try to solve those problems, लेकिन इसके साथ साथ they expand that scientific knowledge, problem solve की, और जो है ना they've solved this problem using research, and as a result उन्होंने the scientific knowledge को expand किया by adding that knowledge into the scientific body of knowledge जो exist करती है for that particular phenomena. So we know what action is, we know what research is. So action is actually about doing things, लेकिन जो चीज़ इसके अंदर action के अंदर missing होती है, जो practices industry के अंदर या किसी भी actual real context में कर रहे होते हैं, what they do not have is they're not designed, executed and assessed as an integral part of a research effort. तो उसके अंदर वो formality नहीं होती जो कि एक research process के अंदर होती है. Action लोग करते आ रहे हैं and they might not know the action that they're doing is the only way of doing things, या ये किस हद तक ये अच्छा action है, या maybe there might be any alternative to it. They just do actions, और अगर उनके पास problems हैं वो solve हो रहे होंगे by hit and trial, right, without using any research formal method of inquiry. On the other hand, research के अंदर क्या नहीं है, research in most of the cases it does not include the problem solving cycle. यानी कि आप research कर ली, उसका result भी आ गया, लेकिन to some extent some validity उसकी भी देखी जाती है कि जो आपने solution propose किया whether it is valid or not, लेकिन उसकी actually full scale उसकी execution नहीं देखी जाती in a typical research study. So it might work in the small, जैसे आपने phenomenon को study किया और solution आपने अपने दिया है तो उधर तो शायद ये work कर ले, लेकिन you haven't actually seen it happening in the real life context per se. So it does not include design, execution and assessment of one or more problem solving cycle, जो कि आप actual में देख सकें कि आपकी approach ने उस problem को solve किया है, और अगर किया है तो किस हद तक किया है. this is where the action research comes in. It's on the cusp of action and research, and ये इन दोनों चीज़ों को include करता है. It includes the problem solving cycle and also a formal research process that goes along it. So action research is cyclic and iterative in nature. क्योंकि see this, you're going to understand something and see if it works or not. ठीक है, तो that involves what कि आप understanding करें एक and then you try you understand a problem, you provide a solution to it, और फिर उसको जाकर देखें कि whether this solution actually works or not. Or if it does not work, then you again go through that cycle. Try to understand what the problem is. यानी उस solution में क्या problem आई. Bring the solution that you think will solve this problem. और फिर अगेन उसको जो है ना देखें whether जो solution आपने नया बनाया है by evaluating the previous one वो काम करता है या नहीं करता. So it is cyclic and iterative. That is, similar step tends to reoccur in a similar sequence. So you see that this cycle continues where you have a problem, you solve it, you execute it and see if it works, and if there's a problem you again solve it and execute it and see if it works. Second, another important thing of action research is it is participative in nature. That is, जो researcher है, he actually has to become a participant in the study that is being carried out. That is, the client and informant are involved as partners or at least active participant in the research process. तो जो आपका researcher है वो भी and जो industry representative है, they are actually active part of the research. आप you cannot say कि as a researcher आप जाएं observe करें. You're not there to observe the phenomena, because then it will be something else, maybe a case study. You become आप बिल्कुल experience करते हो as a researcher what the problem is. आप experience करते हो, in a sense you become part of the phenomena और फिर उसको solve करते हो, and while becoming the part of the phenomena, and then you try to understand कि जो आपने solution दिया है how much it works, whether it works or not, in a cyclic fashion. Another characteristics of action research is qualitative in nature. Okay? Action research, it doesn't really involve numbers. It's more about understanding the problem, finding the solution, or knowing whether that solution works or not. So the numbers nahi hai, that it involves a language that tells you कि किसी एक फील्ड के अंदर जो प्रॉब्लम है वो सॉल्व हो रही हैं, और अगर नहीं हो रही तो क्या रीज़न है. यू ट्राई टू फाइंड दैट रीज़न एंड इम्प्रूव अपॉन इट. सो इट्स qualitative in nature. And another important aspect of action research is it involves reflection. Reflection यानी कि critically researcher reflect करता है upon the processes and the outcomes जो कि उस action research के around जो है ना वो revolve करती हैं. Or in other words, the researcher reflects upon the solution to the problem. If it worked, so वो आंखें बंद करके उसे जाने नहीं देता, all right fine, it works fine, but he reflects upon it why it works. Or अगर if it doesn't work, then he reflects upon it what is the reason that a particular solution is not working. So cyclic, participative, qualitative in nature, and it is reflective. So reflection क्या है? It's about looking back on experiences to improve practice. So reflection, to put it in a simplistic manner, देखिए आप for instance if you in your daily life अगर आपके साथ कोई बहुत अजीब सी कोई all of a sudden out of the ordinary कोई चीज़ हो गई है, कोई बात हो गई है, या you had an extraordinary experience, so then after that experience you try to think about it in terms of what went wrong, or अगर कोई अच्छा experience था तो why is that an अच्छा experience. You might have questions in your mind, or you reliving that experience again and again in order to understand कि ये हुआ तो कैसे हुआ, अगर हुआ है तो इसकी implications क्या हैं. So normally in our daily life when we are conscious we do reflect on things जो कि out of the ordinary होती हैं, because ordinary things जो कि day to day activities होती हैं pretty much we're doing it in a mechanical manner. Lekin reflection, every human being does. Lekin ज़्यादा कब reflection की जाती है? To give you an example of what reflection is, जब हमें कोई extraordinary experience हो. So this is what reflection is in action research. कि आप solution provide करते हो, and because since you're part of that phenomena, यानी आप उसको experience कर रहे हो और आप अपनी intervention को भी experience कर रहे हो, so you actually reflect on it after doing that intervention. कि ये intervention हुई, मैंने पहले भी experience किया है this phenomena before this intervention, and now I'm experiencing this phenomena after the intervention. So after the intervention you reflect on it. अगर बेहतरी कर दी तो क्यों बेहतरी की, और अगर नहीं बेहतरी आई या प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व नहीं हुआ तो क्या रीज़न है कि सॉल्व नहीं हुआ, एंड यू रिफ्लेक्ट सो दैट यू कैन इम्प्रूव दैट प्रैक्टिस. एंड रिफ्लेक्शन इन एक्शन रिसर्च ये ऐसे नहीं होती कि काम हो गया एंड देन उसके बाद आप बैठ गए और रिफ्लेक्ट कर रहे हो, यू ट्राइंग टू अंडरस्टैंड एंड देन फुल स्टॉप. नहीं, बल्कि सिंस इट्स साइक्लिक इन नेचर, सो इट इन्वॉल्व्स व्हाट, कि आप reflect कर रहे हो while that problem is, you're reflecting while you're providing the solution to it, and as a result of that reflection you're learning about the phenomena. Since you're experiencing it before the intervention, you're experiencing it after the intervention, and then you're reflecting on it, and in the meanwhile you're learning about the phenomena in the perspective of कि जो पहले जो नहीं था फिर क्या था, और जो बाद में आपने कोई चीज़ इंटरवेंशन की तो फिर क्या थी, और your whatever that difference is, उन differences को आप learn कर रहे होते while you're reflecting. And the reason while you're reflecting it so that you can make decisions about what to do next. Now we know that the action researchers in the action researchers from the pragmatic research paradigm. तो वहाँ पे we know that the जो ontological belief है वो ये है कि the reality is if it works, right? और how we can know that reality, यानी कि epistemological question का answer क्या है, कि how we know it, उसका आंसर, इस क्वेश्चन का आंसर क्या है, वी नो इट बाय डूइंग. वो कैसे पता चलता है, एक्शन से पता चलता है. तो हाउ इज इट कि यू नो इन एक्शन आपको कैसे लेके जाता है, सो दैट यू आर एबल टू नो. हाउ डू यू नो यूजिंग एन एक्शन? तो द Donald Shawn is an American philosopher, और he says that कि जो knowledge के बारे में in what we reveal in our intelligent actions, जो कि बेशक publicly observable हो या privately observable हो. For example, publicly observable है if you're riding a bicycle, और इसका privately जो observable actions हैं, that is for instance you're doing an analysis on an Excel sheet, और उसमें आप numbers का उनको numbers को balance कर रहे हो, right? So there's some sort of knowledge involved in it. लेकिन in both of the cases जो कि जो knowledge है वो कहीं लिखा हुआ नहीं है, बल्कि वो जो knowledge है that is constituted in action. While you're riding a bicycle, तो आप action कर रहे हो, and that action is about knowledge. आप किसी को no matter, to put it in another way, आप किसी को जितना मर्जी थ्योरी बता दो कि बाइसाइकिल कैसे चलाई जाती है, he will not be able to know that unless he gets on the bike and start doing that action. So this is what his belief is, Donald Shawn, कि knowing is in the action, and we reveal it by our spontaneous, skillful execution of the performance, and we can know it by when we execute, or हमें performance हमें बताती है कि the performance is the performance tells us whether we know or not. So knowing is in the action. So इस किस्म का जो knowledge है, that is a tacit knowledge. That means it is not something that we can write it down. So this is what the epistemological belief is, कि by doing action के through हमें पता चलता है whether we, you know, the way we can know this reality of doing is we know it by doing actions. और फिर it's not that about knowing कि हम action क्या perform करें, बल्कि there's a reflection, another kind of knowing, which is, you know, which comes through reflection. कि reflection takes place in the midst of the action. जो आप action कर रहे हो उसके दरमियान में, you know, you have to reflect whether this action, the action that you're doing is correct or not, या उसके अंदर क्या problems हैं, or if it's working, why is it working, and capacity to respond to a surprise through improvisation on the spot. So if you're doing action and there's all of a sudden a surprise, okay, you know, if it did not work well and you know you weren't expecting it क्योंकि आपने problem का solution बनाया as a researcher and as a practitioner, or you know you were executing that, लेकिन आपकी expectation ये थी कि it should work, लेकिन you know what happened while you were executing that is it didn't go the way you wanted it to go. You expected it to go. It didn't go the way you expected it to go, and as a result you got the surprise. So there आपने reflect करना है in such a way that you can respond to that surprise that came along with it. So your reflection and action involves a surprise, which is an unexpected outcome or behavior that challenges one's knowing in action. तो देखो उससे पहले जब आपने action perform किया उससे पहले आपकी जो knowing थी वो कुछ और थी, because you already knew the action that you were doing. लेकिन जब उसकी outcome आ गई, you know, while you were doing that action, you know, all of a sudden you came across a surprise. तो फिर आपने while you got that surprise उसने challenge किया about the way you knew things, about your knowing of the situation. Or reflection and action involves कि आपके अंदर वो capacity हो कि when you get that challenge you respond to that challenge, and again जो आपने, you can unlearn whatever you knew and you find ways in which you can you know, respond to that situation, या respond to that unexpected situation that arise out of your knowing जो कि आपकी पहले की थी, and you can unlearn that knowing and unlearn it, or you know you find another way around it and respond in a sense कि वो जो surprise आया आप उसको tackle कर सको. So, a response to surprise, conducting an action experiment on the spot by which we seek to solve the new problems. We test our new ways of seeing the situation and also try to change the situation for the better. So, this is what the epistemology is in pragmatic research paradigm. Okay, you know by acting, or when you act, you know it, or while you're acting it, there might come a surprise, and then you should have the capacity to respond on the spot and maybe try to work around the way you know things in order to you know क्या कहते हैं उस problem, उस response, उस surprise को respond कर सको. So reflection also involves pausing after an activity to see how it went, what went well, or what did not go well, or what could be changed. So you know this is a cycle of action and reflection and learning, action and reflection and learning in between. So, and as a result of action research, we develop a set of questions and ideas about our activities and practices. So in the end, outcome इसका क्या होता है? Maybe there are some ideas about it जो कि design principles आप देते हो कि you know certain this situation जो ये problem थी इसको solve करने के का जो principles हैं वो flan. So now let's have a look at the characteristics of an action research. So action research में researcher जो है ना actively involved होता है, collaborate करता है in the project, यानी कि he's a part of the project. And researcher, or you have to have a researcher and an industrial partner. You know आपकी action research कभी ऐसे नहीं हो सकती कि researcher गया और उसने खुद ही से research कर ली. It involves a partner from the industry. जहाँ पर problem है वहाँ पर आपने research करनी है, and you have to put that research into action. You have to execute that action and find out whether that action works or not, reflect on it. और अगर काम करता है तो you form design principle. अगर काम नहीं करता तो again you go through that cycle. So researchers and practitioners intend to bring about change and improvement, and as a result of this cycle changes आती हैं जो कि improvement की तरफ जाती हैं for a particular problem जो कि एक particular phenomena के around के अंदर होती है. Action research की जो characteristics में एक characteristic है कि it has a particular conceptual framework. एक framework है लेकिन different researchers जो action researchers हैं उसको वो different तरीके का नाम देते हैं या they add some other steps into it. So one of the conceptual framework जिसके through जो है ना action research की जाती है, that is Sussman-Everett's जो research action research framework है, that involves step number 1 as problem analysis, step number 2 as planning, step number 3 is execution, and step number 4 is evaluation. And then you do it in cycle, and you do it so that you can capture that learning. Or the learning जो leads, जो learning यहाँ पर हुई after the cycle, it leads to further improved action and reflective cycle. यानी कि दोबारा आप उस analyze करते हो, plan करते हो, execute करते हैं, evaluate करते हैं, and this continues. So let's have a look at what that framework looks like. So we can say that इस framework के अंदर your step जो हैं, they are plan, act, observe, reflect, and revise plan. And they are cycling in a sense कि जब आप reflect कर लेते हो, then again you plan. That means you revise plan, और फिर again you act, and again you observe, and then again you reflect, and then again you revise your plan accordingly. So the way different scientists have taken this framework, Stephen Chemist ने सिखाया इन्हीं चीज़ों को, इन्हीं steps को कहा है analyze, plan, execute, and evaluate. And Sussman इसको ये कहती हैं कि जो steps हैं, they are action planning is planning, action taking is act, evaluating is observe, and reflecting is where you're specifying learning. While you're specifying learning, तो एक और step उन्होंने add कर लिया कि उस learning के दरम्यान में the problem that occurred उसको आप diagnose करते हो, and then again you plan, और फिर act करते हो, observe करते हो, and then reflect. So this is how an action research जो है ना वो carry out करती है using this plan, act, observe, and reflect cycle. So let's have an example of action research कि वो कैसे की जाती है. So in this case I have taken an educational point of view से मैंने example लिया. So maybe there's a researcher, or he's an educationist as well. या तो researcher वो खुद हो गया, और since he's doing research in an educational institute तो वो industry होगी. Maybe वो एक और educationist को अपने साथ मिला सकता है so that he can represent the industrial partner जो कि action research का part होता है कि you need to have a researcher and you also need to have a representative from the industry. So he reflected कि उसने जो problem identify की in his teaching is कि he found कि जो students focus था वो decoding की तरफ था rather than comprehending. जब भी when they were reading something they were decoding it लेकिन उनको समझ नहीं आ रहा था. So the problem was he wanted to solve this problem, or better the practice of his teaching in a way that students they understand, they comprehend what they read. उसने he started off with the problem और फिर उसने इसके ऊपर problem के ऊपर act किया. That is how did he do. उसने he knew about the practices जो कि that were going on, और उसने readers workshop के बारे में he got to know about it, and then he wanted कि वो readers workshop को इस्तेमाल करे and implement this strategy ताकि अपने class के जो students हैं उनकी जो comprehension है वो बेहतर हो सके. So he reader workshop को उसने अपनी teaching के अंदर integrate किया. He taught that course, you taught his student using readers workshop. But once he's done that, he evaluated. Yani कि, after, while he was going through the course, or he was using readers workshop as his teaching method, yeah, the reader workshop के through वो teach कर रहा था, he took observations, or while he was doing readers workshop, उसने देखा कि he observed through interviewing the students, या उसने अपना जर्नल लिख लिया जहाँ पे वो अपनी ऑब्जर्वेशंस जो है ना वो लिख रहा था, और overall he could experience what was going on in the class, because he himself was carrying out this research in the actual naturalistic settings. और उसने साथ साथ उसने एक practitioner को, which is another colleague जो कि as a practitioner उसमें इस action research में का रोल अदा कर रहा था, he asked him to observe the teaching and how the students were responding to his teaching using readers workshop method. तो उन observation के through उसने जो है ना evaluate किया while he was teaching that course. और फिर the observations जो वो कर रहा था उसमें से उसने reflect किया कि जितना भी उसको data आया है, whatever data he collected, that indicated कि student interest और motivation तो reading से relevant increase हो गई, लेकिन still it wasn't solving the problem. कुछ they were motivated जो कि पहले नहीं थे, लेकिन but still the readers workshop did not entirely eliminated the problem of comprehension. थोड़ी बेहतर हुई, लेकिन there were some students who were struggling with the comprehension. तो यहाँ पे उसने reflection किया while he was teaching readers workshop. ये reflection तब नहीं हुई जब उसने पूरा course खत्म कर दिया and then he's reflecting on it. While he was teaching the course, maybe एक session, 2 session, 3 session उसने readers workshop के लिए, and then he reflected on using and the observation that he collected while evaluating. फिर जब उसने reflect किया, then it was, since it was a surprise, so he has to respond to that surprise. उसी वक्त ही spontaneously, he responded to this जो उसने reflect किया and जो उसको learning उसने जो उसने learn किया by using this readers workshop, कि वो क्या करेगा उसको बेहतर बनाने के लिए. I will model more strategies and take more time to teach those strategies, and I will use think aloud so my students will know I'm doing as I read. So he respond to the surprise and by understanding, या by researching कि वो इस situation को बेहतर कैसे बना सकता है. And again ये यहाँ पर उसने दोबारा से identify किया as a result of his reflection, वो दोबारा उसको act करेगा. He will use think aloud protocol along with the readers workshop in order to better the comprehension of his students. Then when he introduces the think alouds, again he has to collect the data, he has to evaluate it, and again he has to reflect on it, and the cycle continues until he come across finally the problem to some extent, to the extent he wanted, it has been solved. And or जो research उसने की है, the action that he has taken, they were able to solve the problems जो कि in the beginning of the research उसने identify की थी. So why an action, the researcher, they adopt action research as a method? क्योंकि since it includes both the practice and the research in itself. So it gives you a deep and first-hand experiences of what's going on around a phenomena that you're understanding. So देखो, since you're part of the research, आप उसके अंदर participant हो, you're observing it, you're reflecting it, आपको बहुत इन डेप्थ अंडरस्टैंडिंग हो जाती है ऑफ द प्रॉब्लम और हाउ दैट प्रॉब्लम कैन बी सॉल्व. एंड ऑफ कोर्स इट सपोज डेवलपमेंट ऑफ रेलेवेंस क्राइटेरिया. आपको पता चल जाता है कि द प्रैक्टिसेस दैट आर prevalent in a particular domain वो वाकई में relevant भी हैं या नहीं है, या उनको चेंज करने की ज़रूरत है, और दे नीड further tweaking ताकि वो जो problems that you're facing वो solve हो सके. And of course it includes complete learning cycles. So research सिर्फ रिसर्च की हद तक नहीं है, बल्कि वो क्या है, वो एक्शनेबल है. आप उसको एक्शन में लेके आते हो और उसको देखते हो कि whatever solution that you think of and you have hypothesized कि वो बेहतर बनाएगी आपकी सिचुएशन को, वाकई में वो काम करती है या नहीं करती. So it's a complete learning cycle. And it, of course, it provide opportunities for industrial collaboration between the researcher and the industry. Just be industry में जाके वो phenomena understand कर रहा through action research, and this is where the funding comes from. Okay, industry वाले आपको fund करते हैं to solve their problem, and as a researcher, it allows you to get the deep understanding. The actual way of doing things is definitely in the naturalist setting. So from your research perspective, research as a training skills लेके आते हो, और you try to understand the problem in the actual naturalistic settings by becoming a part of it. Lekin there are some downsides sides to the action research, and that is it is highly dependent on the problem owner. Jisko problem aa rahi hai, he is the one actually to some extent wohi usko chala raha hota hai. Researcher ka role to hai hi, but ultimately the final decisions are dependent on the जो own करता है, the professional who actually from where that problem is coming from. And it's always case based. आप अपनी action research की findings को कभी भी generalize नहीं कर सकते, because see this, since you become the part of the research, और वो research कहाँ हो रही है, किसी एक particular settings में हो रही है, तो वो and it is qualitative in nature, तो वो उस केस के अंदर तो ट्रू होगी. द डिज़ाइन प्रिंसिपल दैट यू गेट आउट ऑफ इट आर गोइंग टू बी ट्रू इन दैट केस, लेकिन दे माइट नॉट बी जनरलाइजेबल टू द फिनोमेना इन अ बिगर सेंस. वो सिर्फ उसी हद तक महदूद हैं जहाँ पर आपने एक्शन रिसर्च की है.